Faye, the reborn Marquise's daughter's path of revenge. A cold blade was pressed against my neck, but I smiled. Chu Muhan, do you remember 3 years ago, when you personally promised you would only marry me in this lifetime? His eyes were as cold as ice. This king has never liked you. I was merely using your Dingguo Marquise's mansion's military power, that is all. The moment the executioner's blade fell, I saw the woman by his side, my concubine-born younger sister, Lin Wanyin, smiling like a blossoming flower as she nestled in his arms. So it was all a conspiracy, but the heavens gave me a chance to start over. In this life, I will make them pay in blood. The iron chains in the prison had chafed my wrists raw, the dark red blood stains a shocking sight. The cell was filled with the reek of blood and damp mildew, and the dim candlelight flickered unsteadily. My name is Lu Qingshuang, and I was once the eldest legitimate daughter of the Dingguo Marquise's mansion. Now, I'm just a prisoner, and in 3 days, my entire family will be executed. Miss Liu, it is time for your meal. A timid voice sounded from outside the cell door, through the dim light. I saw a young maidservant dressed in coarse clothes standing at the entrance, holding a food box. She had a delicate face, and there was pity in her eyes. This scene, so familiar. Suddenly, a sharp pain shot through my head, and countless images flooded into my mind like a tidal wave. 3 days later, my entire family was beheaded. Father, mother, and my younger brother fell one by one into a pool of blood, and the one presiding over the execution was none other than my once beloved fiancé, the current crown prince, Chu Muhan. He looked at me with a cold expression. Lu Qingshuang, your father colluded with rebels. The evidence is irrefutable. Considering our past affection, this prince will grant you a way to live. Enter the cold palace as a slave, never to leave for the rest of your life. I questioned him indignantly. It was obviously a trap you set. You used me to get my father's military tally, and then turned around to frame us for rebellion, he sneered. Did you think this prince actually liked you? I was only interested in the power of your Duke of Dingguo's household now. You have no more use value. I was sent to the cold palace where I spent 10 sunless years. I suffered from hunger and cold and endured endless humiliation, until one day I heard that Chu Muhan had ascended the throne as emperor, and his new empress was none other than my half-sister, Lin Wanyin. So it was a conspiracy from the very beginning. Lin Wanyin colluded with the crown prince, scheming to frame my legitimate mother and me, all to replace me as the crown princess. And I, like a fool, personally handed the military tally to Chu Muhan, and destroyed my entire family with my own hands. 10 years later, I died in the cold palace on a winter night, filled with overwhelming hatred and indignation. I never thought heaven would give me a chance to start over. Right now, it is exactly 3 days before my family's execution. There is still time for everything, Miss Liu. Seeing that I was silent for a long time, the maid called out cautiously. I took a deep breath, suppressed my surging emotions, and said weakly, "Can you come in and help me up? My arms and legs are weak. I really can't get up." The maid hesitated for a moment, and seeing that no one was around, pushed open the cell door and walked in. "Now's the time." I shot up and karate chopped her on the back of the neck. In my past life during the 10 years in the cold palace, I learned many self-defense techniques to protect myself, and this blow was enough to knock her out for 4 hours. The maidservant fell limply into my arms. I quickly took off her clothes, and then stripped off my own prison garb, and the two of us switched. I carefully sized up this maid. Her face was 70% similar to mine. Only her disposition was more timid. I dragged her to a corner and hid her, straightened the maid's hair bun, picked up the food box, and walked out of the cell. "Finished?" the guard at the door asked lazily. I lowered my head, imitating that maid's timid tone. "To answer you, sir, Miss Liu said she wasn't feeling well and didn't eat much. He is going to die anyway. What does it matter if he eats or not?" The jailer waved his hand for me to leave. I held back my trembling legs and walked out of the sky prison step by step. After Duke Dingguo's mansion was raided, all the valuables inside were confiscated. But I know Mother had a private vault outside the mansion, containing 50,000 taels in silver notes and some jewelry. It was the dowry she prepared for me. In my past life, I never knew about this. Mother tried to tell me before she died, but the executioner's blade cut off all her words. Later, in the cold palace, I replayed that day's scene in my mind countless times, and finally deciphered the address from her last lip movements. Unfortunately, it was already too late by then. But it is different now. I still have time. As the sky grew dark, I blended in with the palace maids getting off duty and left the palace. The streets of the capital were still bustling, as if the catastrophic ruin of Duke Dingguo's mansion had nothing to do with these common folk. I hurried towards the pawn shop in the south of the city, where there was an inconspicuous little courtyard, the very location of my mother's private vault. Pushing open the courtyard gate, everything was just as I remembered. I went straight to the backyard, found the mechanism under the rockery, and took out the heavy box. I opened it to find 50,000 taels in silver notes, a few pieces of exquisite jewelry, and a letter. The letter was from my mother to me. Schwanger, if you are reading this letter one day, it means mother is already gone. These are things mother has saved over many years, originally intended as your dowry, and now they are all yours. My child, no matter what happens, you must live a good life. Remember, the daughters of the Liu family stand tall and proud, never admitting defeat. Tears burst from my eyes. Mother, in this life, I will not let you down again. I will definitely find out the truth and avenge the Liu family. Wiping away my tears, I put away the silver notes and jewelry and quickly left the small courtyard. I can't stay in the capital city. This is Chu Muhan and Lin Wanyan's turf. I need to go to a place where they can't find me to build up my strength and wait for the right opportunity. In the memories of my past life, there was a place in Zhongyan called Suzhou. It was far from the imperial court, with simple and honest local customs, a suitable place to hide. Moreover, 3 years from now, a large jade mine will be discovered in Suzhou, attracting various factions to fight over it. If I can plan ahead and take control of that jade mine, I'll have the capital to contend with Chu Muhan. Having made up my mind, I hired a horse-drawn carriage that very night and headed south. As the carriage jolted out of the capital city, I lifted the curtain and looked back one last time at the magnificent capital. Traveling south all the way, it took me a full half-month to reach Suzhou. Suzhou is located in Zhongyan, with beautiful mountains, clear waters, and a pleasant climate. It is far from the capital city, beyond the reach of the imperial court's influence, making it a good place to settle down and make a living. I rented a storefront on the busiest street in the city, planning to open a jewelry shop during the 10 years in the cold palace in my past life. I learned many skills to pass the time, and designing jewelry was one of them. Also, I remember that in another 2 years, a jewelry style called Ruyi Lock will become popular in the palace, which was designed by Consort Xian, who hadn't gained power yet at the time. If I make it in advance, it is bound to be a huge seller. I named the shop Qingxuangji, personally designed a few jewelry styles, and found artisans to craft them. On the first day of opening, business was very slow. After all, I'm a newcomer and a strange face, so it is normal that no one trusts me. But I'm not in a hurry. I know an opportunity will come soon. Sure enough, 3 days later, the daughter of the Suzhou prefect was celebrating her birthday, and the prefect's wife wanted to prepare a special gift for her daughter, so she sent people to search everywhere. Her personal mama happened to pass by Qingxuangji and was attracted by a jade hairpin in the display window. "Miss, is this hairpin for sale?" The mama walked into the shop, her attitude arrogant. I smiled and went up to her. "Of course, it is for sale. You have a good eye, mama. This hairpin is the pride of our little shop, made of the finest Hetian jade, exquisitely carved, and one of a kind." The mama picked up the hairpin and examined it closely, a flash of amazement in her eyes. "How much silver?" "Ubailam." "What? 500 taels for a single hairpin. Do you take my young miss for a sucker?" The mama's expression changed. I said unhurriedly, "Momo, please look, carved on this hairpin are twin lotuses on a single stalk, symbolizing deep sisterly love and being of one heart forever. And look at this craftsmanship. Every petal is so lifelike. This is the work of a master craftsman who serves the imperial court in the capital city. 500 taels is not expensive." The Momo hesitated. Although she thought it was expensive, she really liked this hairpin. I struck while the iron was hot. "I heard the prefect's daughter will be celebrating her birthday in a few days. Giving this hairpin to her would not only seem precious, but it also has a good meaning. It couldn't be more suitable." "How do you know my young mistress is celebrating her birthday?" The Momo looked at me warily. I smiled slightly. Suzhou City isn't that big, who doesn't know about the prefect's daughter's birthday? Only then did the Momo let down her guard. After pondering for a moment, she finally nodded. All right, I'll take this hairpin, but I have to take it back for the madam to look at first. If the madam is satisfied, I'll come to pay the silver tomorrow. No problem. I wrapped up the hairpin readily and handed it to the Momo. The next day, the Momo did indeed come, and she even brought a reward from the prefect's wife. Not only did she pay the 500 taels for the hairpin, but she also gave an extra 100 taels as a reward. The prefect's wife also sent a message, saying that if I had any other good items, I should feel free to send them to the residents. I knew this was an opportunity, so I meticulously designed a set of jewelry, a necklace, earrings, a bracelet, and a hairpin. The whole set was made of jasper and pearls, noble and elegant. I personally delivered it to the prefect's residence. When the prefect's wife saw the jewelry set, she praised it endlessly. This craftsmanship is just as good as the jewelry shops in the capital. Where did you learn this craft, young lady? I had already prepared my lines. To answer you, madam, my ancestors used to make jewelry in the imperial palace. Later, they fell among the common folk, and this craft was passed down. It is just a pity that my family's fortunes have declined, so I can only open a small shop myself to make a living. The prefect's wife listened, and a flicker of sympathy flashed in her eyes. It must have been hard for you. How about this? I'll recommend you to some of the other ladies in the city, and your business is sure to prosper. I hurriedly thanked her. Sure enough, with the prefect's wife's recommendation, the business at Qingxuangyi quickly boomed. The noblewomen and young ladies of Suzhou flocked to the shop, and the jewelry I designed was in high demand. In just 3 short months, I earned over 10,000 taels of silver. But I wasn't satisfied with this. What I wanted was not just money, but also power and connections. So I began to consciously befriend the powerful and influential people of Suzhou. Every time a noblewoman visited, I would chat a little more, subtly inquiring about their family situations. Gradually, I gained a clear understanding of the distribution of power in Suzhou. Although Suzhou is remote, it is located on a key transportation route, so merchants gather here, making it very prosperous. Besides the prefect, Suzhou is controlled by 3 major merchant guilds: the Salt Guild, the Tea Guild, and the Cloth Guild. These 3 guilds each have their own territory and do not interfere with one another. But I know that in 2 years, the discovery of a jade mine will shatter this balance. At that time, the 3 major guilds will surely fight over that jade mine, and I must get it into my hands before they do. But now is not the time. I need more money, more connections, and a force of my own. Just as I was plotting my next move, an unexpected visitor disrupted my rhythm. That evening, a masked man came into the shop. He was tall and slender, dressed in a black robe. Although his face was masked, I could vaguely tell from his eyes and brows that he was a handsome man. "Miss, I heard you can custom-make jewelry here?" His voice was deep and magnetic, inexplicably making my heart race. I suppressed the strange feeling in my heart and nodded. "Yes. What style would you like, sir?" "I want a white jade hairpin, made from the best mutton-fat white jade, carved with a dragon and phoenix bringing prosperity's pattern." Dragon and phoenix bringing prosperity. That is a pattern only the imperial family can use. Alarm bells went off in my head, but I kept my expression neutral. "Sir, I'm afraid that pattern might not be appropriate, don't you think?" The man said lightly. "I'll pay double the price." I was silent for a moment. "Come back for it in 3 days." The man nodded, left a gold ingot, and turned to leave. Watching his departing figure, my mind swarmed with doubts. Who was this person? Why did he want to custom order a hairpin with a dragon and phoenix design? But I soon put the matter behind me. Suzhou has crouching tigers and hidden dragons. It has all sorts of people, and it is best to not get involved. 3 days later, the man arrived as promised. I handed the hairpin to him. He took it and examined it closely, a flash of satisfaction in his eyes. "The craftsmanship is not bad," he said, pulling out another gold ingot. "This is a reward for you." I didn't refuse. I took the gold and thanked him. The man turned to leave, but suddenly stopped and looked back at me. "Miss, aren't you going to ask me why I wanted this hairpin?" I smiled. "A customer's private business is not for me to ask about." "Smart," the man said meaningfully, and then he really left. After that meeting, I never saw the mysterious man again, but I always had a feeling that we would meet again. In the blink of an eye, it was the 12th lunar month, and the city of Suzhou was enveloped in a festive atmosphere. Business at Clear Frost Pavilion was getting better and better, and I opened a second branch in the eastern part of the city. Now I had over a dozen assistants, and even hired a few guards to protect the shops. Just then, news came from the capital Crown Prince Chu. Muhan had publicly announced at the New Year's Eve palace banquet that he would name a crown princess, and his choice for crown princess was none other than Lin Wanyin, the daughter of a concubine from the Marquis Dingguo's mansion. When I heard this news, I was in the accounts room doing the books, and the abacus bead in my hand fell to the ground with a clack. Sure enough, everything is the same as in my past life. Lin Wanyin, that fae, stepped on the bodies of my legitimate mother and me, and climbed step by step to the position of crown princess, and Chu Muhan, that heartless man, turned around and married my half-sister. I took a deep breath to calm the anger in my heart. No rush, the time isn't right yet. When I'm powerful enough, I'll definitely make them pay the price. Just as I was suppressing my anger, an attendant suddenly came to report, "Boss, someone is outside and says they have urgent business to see you." "Who is it?" "An old monk. He says he is from the capital city." My heart tightened. Could it be that Chu Muhan has sent someone? Let him in. The one who came in was an old monk with white hair and a white beard. He wore a gray monk's robe, held Buddhist prayer beads, and looked kind and benevolent. "Amitabha, benefactor, I trust you have been well." The old monk put his palms together. I sized him up carefully, certain that I had never seen this person in my past life. "Master, do you know me?" The old monk smiled. "This old monk does not know you, benefactor, but I was entrusted by someone to come and deliver something to you." As he spoke, he took a small wooden box from within his robes and handed it to me. I took the wooden box, opened it, and saw a jade pendant inside. This jade pendant is my father's. "Who sent you to deliver this?" I gripped the jade pendant tightly, my voice trembling. The old monk shook his head. "Amitabha, I was merely entrusted by someone, so I can't say much. However, that person asked me to pass on a message to you. As long as the green hills last, there'll be wood to burn. Only by enduring humiliation and shouldering heavy burdens can one achieve great things." After speaking, the old monk turned to leave. "Wait," I called out to him. "Where is that person now?" The old monk stopped and sighed. "Benefactor, some things cannot be rushed. When the time is right, you will naturally meet." Having said that, he left without looking back. I held the jade pendant, my heart filled with a mix of emotions. Could it be, father is still alive? But in my past life, it was clear that no, that is not right. In my past life, I was sent to the cold palace and had no idea what happened afterwards. Maybe father didn't die, but was just rescued by someone. But if father is still alive, why doesn't he come see me? And instead has someone deliver a jade pendant? Countless questions swirled in my mind, but I couldn't find an answer. But one thing was certain, this jade pendant was real. It was something father always kept on his person. Whoever could get this pendant must be connected to father. I kept the jade pendant close to my body and decided to lie low for the time being, waiting for the right moment. Just as that mysterious person said, as long as the green hills last, there'll be wood to burn. I'm not strong enough yet. Acting rashly would only startle the snake in the grass. Only by enduring humiliation and shouldering heavy burdens can one achieve great things. These words, I took them firmly to heart. After the new year, a major event occurred in Suzhou. The leader of the Salt Gang had suddenly dropped dead. The Salt Gang is the head of Suzhou's 3 major merchant guilds, controlling the entire salt industry of Jiangyan. Once the leader died, the gang was leaderless and immediately fell into a chaotic struggle for power and profit. And this chaos soon affected me. That night, I was in the accounting room doing the books when I suddenly heard the sound of fighting outside. Startled, I pushed open the window to look outside and saw a dozen or so men in black attacking my guards. Not good, I cursed inwardly, immediately grabbing my self-defense dagger to prepare to escape, but it was too late. 2 men in black crashed through the window and one of them sneered. "Lu Qingshuang, come with us quietly, or don't blame us for getting rough." They know my real identity. My heart sank, and I gripped my dagger. "Who are you? You don't need to know." the man in black said as he moved forward to seize me. I dodged to the side, my dagger slashing across the man's arm. The man in black cried out in pain, roared in anger, and drew the long saber from his waist to chop at me. The little bit of kung fu I learned in the cold palace was no match for these desperados. Just as the long saber was about to strike me suddenly, a dark figure flashed by, and with a clang, the long saber was sent flying. I looked closely, and the newcomer was that mysterious masked man. "It is you again," I said in surprise. The man ignored me, turned to the men in black, and said, "People from the Salt Gang dare to cause trouble here." The man in black's expression changed. "Who are you? Don't ask what you shouldn't ask." As the man spoke, his figure flashed, and he was already in front of the men in black. He struck like lightning, knocking down the two men in black in just a few moves. The men in black outside heard the commotion and rushed in one after another. The man shielded me and said coldly, "Come at me together." The scene that followed could only be described as a complete domination. The man's martial arts skills were terrifyingly high. Those men in black couldn't even last 3 moves against him. In less than a quarter of an hour, over a dozen men in black were all on the ground. The man turned around and looked at me. "Are you all right?" I shook my head, but my heart was filled with questions. "Why did you save me?" The man was silent for a moment. "Because you owe me a favor." "What favor?" "You made that hairpin for me, and I saved your life, so we're even." This reason was a bit too far-fetched, but I also knew he didn't want to tell the truth. "Thank you." I cupped my fists to express my thanks. The man nodded and turned to leave. "Wait," I called out to him. "These people are from the Salt Gang. Why do they want to capture me?" The man glanced back at me. "Because you're in someone's way. The waters in Suzhou run deep. It is best to be careful." After speaking, he leaped up and disappeared into the night. I looked at the men in black scattered all over the ground, a chill running through my heart. Whose way am I in? Could it be that someone has discovered my true identity? No, that is not right. If Chu Muhan knew I was still alive, he would never have sent people from the Salt Gang, but the Imperial Guards. So who exactly is the one causing trouble behind the scenes? I called over my men, had them tie up these men in black, and then interrogated them under torture, but these people were very tight-lipped and refused to talk no matter how they were questioned. With no other choice, I could only give up and hand them over to the authorities. But from that day on, I strengthened the guards at Qingshuang Pavilion, and also spent a fortune to hire a few highly skilled bodyguards. At the same time, I started to secretly investigate the Salt Gang situation. After making inquiries in many places, I finally figured out the ins and outs of the matter. It turned out that after the Salt Gang's leader died, the gang split into 2 factions. One supported the leader's eldest son, and the other supported his adopted son. The 2 factions fought both openly and secretly, each trying to rally their own forces. And the business at my Clearfrost Pavilion was too good, which caught the attention of a certain faction. They wanted to recruit me, but I refused, so they decided to use forceful means to make me submit. How ridiculous. These people thought I was just a helpless woman, theirs for the taking. Little do they know. I, Liu Qingshuang, am not to be trifled with. Since you made the first move, don't blame me for not holding back. I began to scheme in secret, using the Qingshuang Pavilion to spread rumors in the influential circles of Suzhou, saying the Salt Gang's eldest son was colluding with outsiders, wanting to sell the salt business to out-of-town merchants. As soon as this rumor came out, it immediately caused a huge uproar. Suzhou's salt industry is the local lifeline. If it were really controlled by outsiders, countless people would lose their livelihoods. So, the people who originally supported the Salt Gang's eldest son all switched sides to support the adopted son. In just one short month, the situation in the Salt Gang was turned upside down. The Salt Gang's eldest son, deserted by everyone, could only leave Suzhou in disgrace. Meanwhile, the adopted son smoothly took over as the new gang leader. After taking office, the new gang leader's first act was to personally pay me a visit, to thank me for my grace of not killing. It turns out the men in black who came to capture me that night were sent by the eldest son. If I hadn't fought back, they would have succeeded long ago. The new gang leader is a smart man. He knew I wasn't an ordinary merchant, so he took the initiative to show goodwill, expressing his willingness to cooperate with Qingshuang Pavilion. I gladly accepted. With the support of the Salt Gang, Qingshuang Pavilion's influence expanded rapidly. I not only opened more than 10 branch stores across Suzhou, but also expanded the business into several neighboring prefectures. In just half a year, I became the top female merchant in Suzhou. But I wasn't complacent. I knew the real test was still ahead, that jade mine was about to be discovered. Sure enough, at the beginning of spring the next year, a large jade mine was discovered on Qinglong Mountain, outside of Suzhou. Once the news got out, all of Suzhou was in an uproar. In ancient times, jade was a hard currency, and the value of a large jade mine was simply immeasurable. The imperial court, the salt gang, the tea gang, the cloth gang, and all sorts of merchants all had their eyes on this jade mine. The prefect reported it to the imperial court at the first opportunity, requesting them to send people to take over the jade mine. But the imperial edict hadn't arrived yet, and various factions had already started to secretly contend for it. I had long expected this day would come. Before the jade mine was discovered, I had secretly sent people to acquire land in the Azure Dragon Mountain area. Now, half of the land where the jade mine is located is under my name. This move directly gave me the upper hand after hearing the news. The new leader of the Salt Gang immediately came to find me to discuss countermeasures. Proprietor Liu, the value of this jade mine is no small matter. I'm afraid it will attract the attention of the imperial court, the new gang leader said worriedly. I smiled. The imperial edict hasn't arrived yet. We have plenty of time to make our plans. Do you have any brilliant plans, Proprietor Liu? I pondered for a moment. The jade mine is on my land, but as a woman, I can't command the situation alone. How about this? You and I join forces, and will announce to the public that the jade mine was discovered by the Salt Gang, but I'll take a 30% share. The new gang leader's eyes lit up. That is excellent. With the Salt Gang taking the lead, the other factions won't dare to act rashly. Once the imperial edict arrives, we can act according to the circumstances. That is precisely my intention. So the Salt Gang and I reached an agreement to jointly develop the Azure Dragon Mountain jade mine. After the news got out, the Tea Gang and the Cloth Gang naturally weren't willing to accept it, and wanted a piece of the pie too. But the Salt Gang was rich and powerful, and had my support from behind, so the Tea Gang and the Cloth Gang couldn't do a thing to us. After a stalemate of over a month, the imperial court's decree finally came down. The jade mine is to be nationalized, managed by special personnel appointed by the imperial court. At the same time, civilian merchant gangs are allowed to participate in the mining, but they must hand over 70% of the profits to the court. When this decree was issued, everyone was dumbfounded. 70% of the profits go to the court, and the remaining 30% still has to be divided among various factions. In the end, you'd be lucky to get even 10% in your own hands. This is downright robbery, but there was nothing to be done. Who would dare to defy the imperial court's decree? Just as everyone was looking gloomy, I was secretly delighted, because I knew the person sent by the court to manage the jade mine was precisely that mysterious masked man in my past life. After this jade mine was taken by the court, he was the one in charge of managing it, and he was actually the current emperor's illegitimate son, one of the people the emperor trusted the most. It is just that in my past life I didn't know all this, and missed the chance to befriend him. But this life is different. He and I have already crossed paths twice, and although he is hiding his identity, I can guess he bears me no ill will. Sure enough, half a month later, the imperial envoy sent by the court arrived in Suzhou. The moment the imperial envoy removed his veil, my heart skipped a beat. It was him. The imperial envoy's name is Xiao Jinyan, the current emperor's most trusted confidant. Although he is young, his methods are cunning and experienced, and no one in the court dares to look down on him. After Xiao Jinyan arrived at his post, the first thing he did was to summon all the major factions in Suzhou to discuss matters concerning the jade mine's excavation. At the meeting, Xiao Jinyan announced the imperial court's decision. The mining rights to the jade mine will be given to the Salt Gang, but they must hand over 70% of the profits. At the same time, the Tea Gang and the Cloth Gang can also participate, but their shares will be smaller. After hearing this, the new leader of the Salt Gang's expression turned very ugly, with 70% of the profits handed over to the imperial court, and the remaining 30% to be split with the Tea Gang and the Cloth Gang. What the Salt Gang could get would probably be less than even 10%, but he didn't dare to object and could only brace himself and accept it. After the meeting was dismissed, Xiao Jinyan kept me behind alone. Miss Liu, we meet again. Xiao Jinyan took off his official's hat, revealing a handsome face. I curtsied. Greetings, Your Excellency. Xiao Jinyan waved his hand. No need for formalities. There are no outsiders here. You and I don't need to be so restrained when we talk. I raised my head, looking straight into his eyes. Your Excellency kept me behind. What are your instructions? Xiao Jinyan smiled. This land with the jade mine, you bought it in advance, didn't you? I was startled inside, but my expression remained unchanged. I wonder what makes you say that, Your Excellency. That area around Azure Dragon Mountain was originally deserted and barren, completely worthless. But you started buying up the land there half a year before the jade mine was discovered. If you say this is a coincidence, I don't buy it. Xiao Jinyan stared at me, his gaze sharp. I took a deep breath and decided to tell the truth. Your Excellency has guessed correctly. I did indeed learn about the jade mine in advance, which is why I made my move ahead of time. How did you know? I smiled slightly. I have my sources. Xiao Jinyan was silent for a moment, then suddenly said, Lu Qingshuang, you're not a Suzhou local, are you? My heart tightened, but I remained calm on the outside. Why do you say that, Your Excellency? Your temperament, conversation, and knowledge are not like those of an ordinary merchant. Moreover, the jewelry shop you opened uses techniques from the capital's imperial court. If I'm not mistaken, you must be from the capital, and of no ordinary birth. Xiao Jinyan's gaze seemed as if it could see through everything. I was silent for a long time, and finally sighed. Your Excellency has a discerning eye. Lu Qingshuang of the Marquis Dingguo's estate. Xiao Jinyan stated my true identity calmly. I snapped my head up, looking at him in disbelief. How could you possibly know? Xiao Jinyan smiled. The day Duke Dingguo's entire household was executed, I happened to be in the capital. I heard that Duke Dingguo had a legitimate eldest daughter, beautiful and intelligent, but she escaped the day before the execution. Later, the imperial court sent people to search everywhere, but they never found any trace of you. My whole body went cold, as if I had fallen into an ice cellar, so he knew my identity all along. Sir, since you know I'm an imperial fugitive, why don't you arrest me and take me back to the capital? I asked, gritting my teeth. Xiao Jinyan stood up, walked over to me, and looked at me seriously. Because I know that the case of Duke Dingguo's manor is full of suspicious points. My heart jolted. The evidence of Duke Dingguo colluding with rebels came about too coincidentally, and the person who reported Duke Dingguo was none other than the Crown Prince's trusted aide. I'm afraid there is a hidden story behind all this. My eyes turned red, and my voice choked up. Sir, you're willing to believe my father is innocent. I don't know if Duke Dingguo is innocent, but I know that the Crown Prince, Chu Muhan, is no good. Xiao Jinyan sneered. He framed Duke Dingguo for no other reason than to seize military power. Too bad for him after all his scheming. He didn't count on you escaping. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself down. Sir, since you know the truth, why don't you report it to the Emperor? The Emperor? Xiao Jinyan shook his head. The Emperor has grown old. All he thinks about now is how to let the Crown Prince succeed the throne smoothly. Even if I told him the truth, he wouldn't believe it. My heart turned to dead ashes. Even the Emperor favors Chu Muhan. Who else can I count on? As if he saw my despair, Xiao Jinyan suddenly said, But I can help you. I snapped my head up. You're willing to help me. Why? Because the Crown Prince and I don't get along, Xiao Jinyan said lightly. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. You want revenge, and I want to bring down the Crown Prince. Our goals are the same. I looked at him, my heart filled with mixed emotions. This man could have clearly captured me and taken me back to the capital for a reward, yet he chose to help me. What is he really after? As if he saw through my doubts, Xiao Jinyan said, I know what you're thinking, but rest assured, I won't harm you. If I really wanted to capture you, I would have done it the first time we met. Why wait until now? He was right. The first time we met, he already knew my identity, yet he chose to pretend he didn't know. Perhaps he really is willing to help me. What does your lordship want me to do? I asked. Xiao Jinyan smiled. It is simple. Help me manage this jade mine well. I want to make it the imperial court's biggest source of income, and also make it a sharp weapon to bring down the Crown Prince. I pondered for a moment, then nodded. All right, I agree. From that day on, Xiao Jinyan and I formed an alliance. On the surface, I was still the owner of Qingshuang Pavilion, running the jewelry business, but secretly, I assisted Xiao Jinyan in managing the jade mine, and used its profits to secretly cultivate my own forces. And Xiao Jinyan used the power in his hands to clear obstacles for me, allowing me to gain a firm foothold in Suzhou. With Xiao Jinyan's support, my business flourished. Qingshuang Pavilion's business grew larger and larger, not only opening branches throughout Zhongyan, but even expanding to the capital city. And the profits from the jade mine, in particular, made me a fortune. In just 2 short years, I had accumulated an astonishing amount of wealth and power. But I knew this wasn't enough. What I wanted wasn't just money and power. What I wanted were the lives of Chu Muhan and Lin Wanyin. Finally, the opportunity came. This year, the imperial court issued a decree to select maidens from Zhongyan to enter the palace. And Xiao Jinyan told me that this selection was Crown Prince Chu Muhan's idea. He wanted to use the opportunity to plant his own people in the harem, in order to consolidate his power after he ascends the throne. This is an opportunity, Xiao Jinyan said to me. If you can enter the palace, you'll have a chance to get close to Chu Muhan and find the evidence of him framing the mansion of Duke Dingguo back then. I was silent for a moment. If I enter the palace, wouldn't that be like a sheep entering a tiger's den? No, Xiao Jinyan shook his head. You are no longer the same helpless eldest miss of the Liu family from back then. You have money, power, and connections. Even if Chu Muhan recognizes you, he wouldn't dare to act rashly. He was right. The me of today is no longer the weak woman from back then, who could be pushed around by anyone. I have the Qingshuang Pavilion. I have the Salt Gang. And I also have Xiao Jinyan backing me up. Even if Chu Muhan recognizes me, he can't do anything to me. What is more, I've already had plastic surgery. Although I'm still beautiful now, I'm very different from the Liu Qingshuang of the past. Chu Muhan won't recognize me. Okay, I promise you, I said. So, I changed my name and entered this concubine selection as the daughter of the Suzhou prefect. With my beauty and talents, I successfully passed every round of selection and was ultimately chosen to enter the palace. And my title was Zhou Yi. The day I entered the palace, I stood under the towering palace walls, my heart filled with mixed emotions. It has been 3 years, and I've finally returned to this capital city that I hate to the bone. After entering the palace, I was assigned to the West Warm Pavilion. Although the West Warm Pavilion wasn't the best palace, it was considered quiet. My palace maids and eunuchs were all confidants arranged by Xiao Jinyan, so I didn't have to worry about being watched. On the 3rd day after entering the palace, I met Chu Muhan. He still had that same gentle and refined appearance, wearing a long white robe with a jade belt at his waist, looking imposing and suave. If I hadn't personally experienced his cold-blooded ruthlessness, I might have really been deceived by his appearance. Zhou Yi, we have heard you are gifted with both beauty and talent. Seeing you today, you truly live up to your reputation, Chu Muhan said with a smile. I curtsied and said respectfully, Thank you for your generous praise, Your Majesty. This servant is apprehensive. Chu Muhan walked a little closer, carefully sizing me up. My heart tightened, and I secretly clenched the handkerchief in my hand. Will he recognize me after a moment? Chu Muhan averted his gaze and said lightly, Your appearance does bear some resemblance to someone Jen once knew. My heart was pounding like a drum, but I forced myself to remain calm. I wonder who Your Majesty is referring to. A person who is already dead. A complex emotion flashed through Chu Muhan's eyes. Let's not talk about it. He didn't recognize me after all. I secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Chu Muhan sat in the West Warm Pavilion for a moment, then got up and left. Before he left, he ordered a eunuch to reward me with some jewelry. After he left, I immediately had my trusted palace maid check the jewelry, and only put it away after confirming there were no problems. In this deep palace, there are traps everywhere, and I have to be on guard. Half a month after entering the palace, I finally met Lin Wanyin. She is now the empress, living in the most luxurious Fengyi palace. On the day we met, she sat upright on the phoenix throne, wearing a magnificent phoenix robe and a phoenix crown, looking regal and elegant. But I knew that under this magnificent appearance hid the most venomous heart. Zhou Yi is from Suzhou? Lin Wanyin asked lightly. I answered respectfully. Yes, Your Majesty the Empress. Lin Wanyin sized me up, a trace of doubt flashing in her eyes. Why do I feel that your temperament isn't like that of a Suzhou woman? My heart tightened, but my face remained impassive. Your Majesty the Empress, you flatter me. I have admired the prosperity of the capital since I was a child, so I made a point of learning the capital's etiquette and rules. Lin Wanyin nodded, seemingly accepting this explanation, but I knew she had become suspicious. From that day on, I became even more careful and cautious, afraid of revealing any flaws. The days in the imperial harem were calm on the surface, but in reality, undercurrents were surging. The consorts of the various palaces schemed against each other, both openly and secretly, all wanting to vie for favor. And I, on the other hand, observed from the shadows, looking for an opportunity. Finally, the opportunity came. On this day, news spread through the palace. The Empress was pregnant. Once the news was out, the entire imperial harem was shaken. The Empress's pregnancy meant her position was even more secure, and Chu Muhan was ecstatic, his doting on Lin Wanyin reaching its peak. But I, however, saw an opportunity in this news. In my past life, Lin Wanyin miscarried this child before it reached 3 months, and the cause of the miscarriage was a problematic pregnancy stabilizing medicine she had taken. That medicine was a gift from a concubine. That concubine was later executed, and because of this, Lin Wanyin received even more of Chu Muhan's pity and affection. But I know that medicine was actually arranged by Lin Wanyin herself. She deliberately had someone drug her to cause her own miscarriage, then framed that concubine, using the opportunity to eliminate her rivals. In this life, I won't let her succeed. I secretly sent people to watch Lin Wanyin's every move, and at the same time, through Xiao Jinyin's connections, I found out the identity of the concubine who delivered the medicine. Sure enough, that concubine was innocent. The medicine she delivered had no problem at all. It was Lin Wanyin who secretly switched the medicine, and then framed her. I gathered this evidence and waited for the right moment. Sure enough, a month later, Lin Wanyin had a miscarriage. Chu Muhan was furious and ordered a thorough investigation into the matter. Meanwhile, Lin Wanyin tearfully accused that concubine of harming her. Just as that innocent concubine was about to be executed, I stepped forward. Reporting to Your Majesty, this servant has something to say. I knelt on the ground and said respectfully. Chu Muhan frowned. What do you have to say? I took a letter from my sleeve and presented it. This is a letter this servant came across by chance. Please take a look, Your Majesty. Chu Muhan took the letter, opened it, and his expression changed drastically. That letter was the very one Lin Wanyin wrote to her trusted palace maid, in which she detailed her plan to frame that concubine. This is impossible. Lin Wanyin's face was deathly pale. This must be a forgery, I sneered. Your Majesty the Empress, the handwriting on this letter is your own. If Your Majesty doesn't believe it, you can have someone authenticate it. With a grim face, Chu Muhan had someone compare the handwriting on the letter with Lin Wanyin's usual handwriting. Sure enough, it was a perfect match. Lin Wanyin, how dare you? Chu Muhan roared. You dare to deceive me. Lin Wanyin knelt on the ground, trembling all over. Your Majesty, I have been wronged. How could I do such a thing? Someone must have framed me. Your Majesty, I stood up and said, neither servile nor overbearing, I have more evidence. I had a palace maid bring up a bowl of medicine. This is the pregnancy stabilizing medicine Her Majesty, the Empress, drank before her miscarriage. I had the imperial physician examine it, and musk was added to this medicine. And this musk was found in Her Majesty the Empress's chambers. Chu Muhan's expression grew uglier and uglier. The evidence was conclusive, and Lin Wanyin could not argue her way out of it. In the end, Chu Muhan issued an edict to depose Lin Wanyin of her title as Empress and throw her into the cold palace. Watching the pathetic sight of Lin Wanyin being dragged out by the eunuchs, I felt immensely satisfied. After Lin Wanyin was thrown into the cold palace, the power structure of the harem underwent a huge change. Those concubines who had originally attached themselves to the Empress all switched sides and began to curry favor with the new favorite concubine. And because I exposed Lin Wanyin, I gained Chu Muhan's favor. He not only promoted me to imperial consort, but also put me in temporary charge of the inner palace's affairs. This was exactly what I wanted. Being in charge of the inner palace meant I could access more secrets and also investigate the truth behind the raid on the Duke of Dingguo's estate back then. I began to investigate in secret, and finally found some clues. The one who reported the Duke of Dingguo's estate back then was a eunuch named Li Fu, and this Li Fu was Chu Muhan's trusted confidant. I sent someone to secretly contact Li Fu and bribed him with a hefty sum. Li Fu told me that the evidence used to report the Duke of Dingguo's estate back then was all fabricated by Chu Muhan. The Duke of Dingguo never colluded with the rebels. The so-called evidence was just a lie Chu Muhan made up to seize military power, and Lin Wanyin was Chu Muhan's accomplice. She stole my private letters and gave them to Chu Muhan, allowing him to forge them into evidence of the Duke of Dingguo colluding with the rebels. Hearing this, I wanted so badly to kill Chu Muhan and Lin Wanyin immediately, but I held back. It is not the time yet. I need more evidence. I need to utterly ruin Chu Muhan's reputation and make him taste what it is like to lose everything. Just as I was secretly plotting, news came from Xiao Jinyan. The Duke of Dingguo is still alive. He was rescued back then and has been living in hiding under a false identity in Zhongyan all these years. And the person who saved him was none other than Xiao Jinyan. Upon learning this news, I cried tears of joy. Father is still alive. I can finally see Father. Xiao Jinyan arranged for me and Father to meet in a manor outside the city. That day, I changed into plain clothes and secretly left the palace. In the manor, an old man with white hair and a white beard was standing in the courtyard, with his back to me. Father, I called out with a sob. The old man turned around, and the moment he saw me, tears streamed from his cloudy eyes. Schwanger. He reached out a trembling hand. I threw myself into Father's arms and burst into tears. It has been 3 years. 3 whole years. I finally saw Father again. Father told me that on the day our entire family was to be beheaded, Xiao Jinyan secretly saved him. But Mother and my younger brother couldn't be saved. Hearing this news, my heart felt like it was being cut by a knife. Mother, younger brother, it is all my fault. If I hadn't naively trusted Chu Muhan, they wouldn't have died. Schwanger, don't blame yourself, Father said, holding my hand. It is not your fault. It was all that beast Chu Muhan's doing. Don't worry, Father. Your daughter will definitely avenge Mother and younger brother, I said, gritting my teeth. Father sighed. Revenge. Easier said than done. Chu Muhan has now ascended the throne as emperor, and overthrowing him is harder than climbing to heaven. Your daughter already has a plan, I said. Just give me some more time, and I will definitely make Chu Muhan lose his reputation and fall from grace. Father looked at me with relief. Schwanger has grown up. You know how to endure now. Good, Father believes in you. My father and I spent the whole day together, and we only parted reluctantly when night fell. After returning to the palace, I sped up my actions. I secretly contacted the ministers in the court who were dissatisfied with Chu Muhan, and also used the financial resources of Qingshuang Pavilion to bribe some key figures. At the same time, I had Xiao Jinyan find all the witnesses from when Chu Muhan forged evidence back then, and had them write down their confessions. That winter, the northern border suddenly reported an emergency, saying there was an invasion by a foreign tribe. Chu Muhan was furious and ordered troops to be sent to quell the rebellion. But strangely, several of the great generals in the court made all sorts of excuses, unwilling to dispatch troops. Left with no choice, Chu Muhan had to personally lead the expedition himself. This was exactly the opportunity I had been waiting for. Once Chu Muhan was gone, the capital would be mine for the taking. I took action immediately, presenting all the collected evidence to the Empress Dowager. When the Empress Dowager saw that evidence, she trembled with anger. This rebellious son, how dare he do such a thing? The Empress Dowager roared, Guards, relay our decree, dethrone Chu Muhan, and enthrone a new emperor. Once the Empress Dowager's decree was issued, the court was in an uproar, but the ministers I had bribed all stepped forward to support the Empress Dowager, and Chu Muhan's faction was powerless to resist. Soon, the Empress Dowager seized control of the government's power, and Chu Muhan, after hearing the news at the border, was so angry he vomited blood. He wanted to return to the capital to seize power, but was stopped by Xiao Jinyan leading his troops. Chu Muhan, your sins are deep, just surrender obediently, Xiao Jinyan said coldly. Chu Muhan looked at Xiao Jinyan and suddenly let out a miserable laugh. So it was you. So you were the one pulling the strings behind the scenes all along. It wasn't me. You brought this on yourself with your own evil deeds, Xiao Jinyan said. The case of Duke Dingguo's manor back then. You thought you handled it flawlessly, but you didn't know you left an opening long ago. Chu Muhan's face turned deathly pale. Duke Dingguo is still alive. Not only is Duke Dingguo alive, his daughter Lu Qingshuang is also alive, Xiao Jinyan sneered. And she is in the palace right now, waiting to see your downfall. Chu Muhan trembled all over and muttered, Impossible. Lu Qingshuang is clearly dead. She didn't die, she just changed her identity, Xiao Jinyan said. Do you remember Zhao Yi? She is Lu Qingshuang. Chu Muhan, as if struck by lightning, collapsed to the ground. Lu Qingshuang. It is Lu Qingshuang, he muttered to himself, endless regret flashing in his eyes. But it was already too late. Chu Muhan was escorted back to the capital and thrown into the imperial prison, and Lin Wanyin was also dragged out of the cold palace and taken to the execution grounds along with Chu Muhan. On the day of the execution, I stood outside the execution ground coldly watching them. When Chu Muhan saw me, a complex emotion flashed through his eyes. Lu Qingshuang, you've won, I sneered. I've won. I lost my mother, my younger brother, my entire family. What did I win with? Chu Muhan fell silent. Lin Wanyin, on the other hand, shrieked like a madwoman. Lu Qingshuang, you Fei, this is all your fault. If it weren't for you, I would have been the empress long ago. I walked up to her and slapped her across the face. Fei, you're the real Fei. You colluded with outsiders, murdered the legitimate wife, and framed your own sister. How dare you say that about me? Lin Wanyin was beaten until she spat blood, yet she remained unreconciled. I'm not resigned to this. Being unreconciled is useless now, I said coldly. Everything you owed me, I've taken it all back today. The executioner raised his greatsword and brought it down with a single chop. The heads of Chu Muhan and Lin Wanyin rolled to the ground. Looking at their bodies, I felt no pleasure, only endless exhaustion. My revenge was finally complete, but what I had lost could never come back. Later, the Empress Dowager issued a decree to Fei for the residence of Duke Dingguo, restoring the Liu family's reputation. My father returned to the capital and served as the Minister of War. As for me, I left the imperial palace, returned to Suzhou, and continued to run my Qingshuang pavilion. Xiao Jinyan also resigned from his official post to stay by my side. Do you regret it? He asked me. I shook my head. I don't regret it. Although the process was very painful, at least I avenged my family and found myself again. Xiao Jinyan smiled and took my hand. From now on, I'll always be with you. I looked at him, a warm feeling washing over my heart. In this life, although I've lost a lot, I've also gained a lot. I am no longer that weak woman at the mercy of others, but a strong person who can control her own destiny. And that is enough. Many years later, I stood before the entrance of Qingshuang Pavilion, watching the bustling crowd, my heart filled with countless emotions. After my rebirth, I finally lived the life I wanted. This life, I have no regrets.